Okay, thank you very much. Maybe we may need to start. The last presentation is by Dr. Chin and his colleague um, on the topic enabling care at scale,
Yep.
designing online educator training for relational capacity. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much.
Hi,
So
Chinh.
my name is Chin. I'm a senior advisor for student experience with Melbourne Online, and my colleague.
Hi, I'm Dawn Gilmore. I'm the new executive dean at Victoria University, also in Melbourne. And prior to that, I was working with Chinh at Melbourne Online.
Yep. And today we'll be presenting on enabling care at scale, designing online educator training for relational capacity. Okay. Um, so over to you, Dawn, for the next few
Okay.
slides.
Thank you. So I just want to give a brief kind of overview of the context that Chin and I were working with. So we were basically tasked with a request from the provost to embed online academic teaching roles into the faculties that would be delivering fully online asynchronous programs. And we did quite a bit of co-collaboration with university stakeholders and academics. And one of the themes that came out of our Faculty of Education was that they didn't believe, and they felt this quite strongly, that we could do care online. So we used that as almost our challenge statement for this work. So there was, we had to get this through the union and industrial relations and so many different stakeholder groups. But then on the other side was how do we kind of win over the hearts and minds of academics so that that could flow down to the academic teaching staff online and then students. And we did that by creating space for care. And today we're going to walk through some of the tools and approaches that we use to create space for care for teachers. And then we will show you some of the results that we've received in terms of teacher and student feedback on how we're going with this. So, in terms of the gap and aim, relational pedagogy, interestingly, really took hold in COVID. It was like a new thing for many people in online higher ed in Australia. And then after COVID, it was okay, well, how do we keep this going and ensure that it's part of our fully asynchronous models in Australia, which as a whole, the sector does quite well. Often existing accounts are fragmented, and we kept that in mind throughout the design. Chin and I have a really strong mantra on purposeful design. So we design purposefully for our student, we design purposefully for our teachers. Our aim then was to present a practice-informed model of online educator training that creates the conditions for pedagogy and care for digital mediated environments, such as the fully online 6-week model that we set up and are delivering.
Cool. So our approach was basically we will, based on the design and delivery of the institutional online educator training program, we focus on three particular conditions under which a pedagogy of care has become possible. So the first one is the time, the workload, the capacities in terms of online teachings, the confidence, the readiness in terms of becoming online teachers in the 6-week online model that we're running at Melbourne. And we also examined how institutional role design. So this is quite a new approach to the university in terms of the education focused role for this particularly online educator and the supporting structures around those role and professional learning that interact with this. So this is the snippet of the online educator training course that we built. So this course has basically 4 modules to train the online educator with all of the knowledge and the practical skills that they need to do their job as an online educator, and making sure that they support the student to become successful learners. So in the first modules, we were looking at how online studies at University of Melbourne, the students, how we work, and then their roles and their task. The second module, we're looking at the online facilitation theories and practices to bring the online class to life. In the third module, we're introducing the policies around the processes and the supports around the assessment and the marking for the online educator. And the fourth and the final module explain the opportunity the University of Melbourne offers into enhancing their professional capability. So it takes about 4 to 6 hours for the online educator to complete this training course. And obviously they can do it at their own pace as well. So the model overview, as you can see over there, our core proposition is that the pedagogy of care in an online environment is not achieved primarily through exhortation, that is to telling online educator to care more, or even through the isolated workshops on relational pedagogy. Instead, care is actually being enabled by institutional design, purposefully designed in terms of designing role, the routine, the support, so that the relational work become both expected and realistically achievable. So the model we develop is structured around 3 interactive pillars: operational clarity, which is making the online educator role concrete and knowable. Second is structured support, building an ecosystem of coaching and helping around educator day-to-day work. Sustained professional learnings, creating online space for reflection and growth for the online educator. So when these 3 pillars are working together, educator are able to redirect their attention from juggling tasks and coping with ambiguity toward more presence, to the online students, responsiveness and meaningful engagement with their students. So pillar number 1, operational clarity. The first pillar in this one is really the day-to-day tasks that they will do as an online educator. We translate the performance expectation and KPI into concretely weekly practices. I'll show you what it looks like in the next page. Operationalize online educator role, so clear priorities for communication, for feedback, for engagement. Um, uh, Practical routine that fits within their workload. This is a 0.4 FTE workload for the online educator, and reducing the ambiguities and free all of the cognitive space for relational work. So this is one of the checklists that we have designed for the online educator. So before week 0, before the term start, those are the activities that they need to go through: completion of the online educator training course, reviewing the Melbourne Online Teaching Hub, a subject that they'll be facilitating, attending a joint onboarding session with the faculty team and with Melbourne Online, and familiarize themselves with Canvas and the subject content, and obviously checking connectivity, follow up with any technical difficulties when running classes on Zoom. For ongoing, as you can see over there, there's activity for them to contribute to discussions, activities for student posts within 24 to 48 hours, discipline-specific advising, mentoring, email to students. So this list is, we designed it for every single week, week 0, week 1, for them to follow through, so that they will be able to, support and care for every single student in their class. Pillar number 2 is structure support. So we recognize that clarity alone is not enough, but educators need also scaffolding and help, especially in early stages when they're starting with us for the first few terms. So first, we designed a context-specific onboarding that center around the lived experience of online student using scenarios, personas to make student needs more concrete and emotionally resonant. And secondly, we're creating support ecosystem, building around the weekly coaching, so 30 minutes a week for 7 weeks of the first terms. So there are short targeted conversation focusing on the upcoming teaching demands and reflective problem solving as they go through every single week. Ongoing access to help and guidance for technical, administrative, and pedagogical issues as well. So we got online requests, so the online tutor will be able to make those requests as they need, as they go through, whether it's content, whether it's admin, whether it's technical, and that will be help immediately. The design goal here is to reduce the cognitive and administrative load so that educators are not constantly firefighting or reinventing the solutions. Importantly is the support does not prescribe rigid script. It's aimed at supporting professional judgment, helping online educators to make informed, context-sensitive decisions in ways that aligning with care-oriented pedagogy. So the third pillar, we're focusing on the sustained professional learning. So this one, we integrate the guided reflection on educator development capability over time. They're invited to track their own growth, relational practices, not just the technical proficiencies. The second one is we build out the community of practice for all of the online educator, across faculty and across the university. This is to provide regular peer space where educator can share challenges, their successes, discuss strategies for engaging specific cohort, addressing particular dilemmas in online education delivery, co-develop new practices that fit the disciplines and contexts. Framing learning as ongoing rather than a fixed initial training signal important. It's very important. It helps educator to see care-oriented pedagogy as something that can deepen and adapt rather than a static checklist that have to go through. So over time, this sustained learning builds both confident and collective wisdom, which are essential for enacting care within a complex and changing online environment. So mechanisms and early evidence over here. So we've seen the reduced administrative and cognitive load, clarities and confidence in their role, and more time for capacity and for presence and for responsiveness to all student needs. And early evaluation, we've seen very high educator satisfaction with onboarding and training, and strong student satisfaction with the teaching approaches as well. So, and this obviously indicating the model supporting relational work in practice in online environment. So this is online educator experience of the training that they've gone through with us. We measure from 1 to 5, and the median score that we got is around 4.5, as you can see over there. Whether, from Q1, question 1, University of Melbourne vision for online studies, down to understand the online student cohort, grabs how UniMel support the online cohort, familiar with who's in my team, understanding the key tasks as an online educator, confident, understanding student experience, familiarity with policy process and supporting services, down to feel prepared to deliver the first online subject. So they feel quite prepared with the online training that we have designed for them. The second one is online educator satisfaction with the teaching. We measure that one through at the end of the teaching terms. So people have said, you can see over there again, from 1 to 5, with 5 as being, extremely confident. You can see that the result has been quite amazing. They feel that they are very, they got adequate support. The concern and suggestions regarding on teaching was acknowledged and addressed, and they're confident that they have all the necessary information and resources to fulfill their roles. They're satisfied with the quality of the subject, content setup, and online teaching platforms and tools, and overall, they are satisfied with their experience as an online educator at the University of Melbourne. Very, very positive so far. And as you can see here, in terms of the student as well, so student satisfaction of the approaches so far, we start online delivery from OT online term 5 last year. That was around August. And we got data until online term 2 this year, so which is around May this year. So those you can see over there, we have been averaging around 4.1 so far for 2026. The target is about 4 over there. And even in the lowest, one where we started a new degree, if you can see that we start new degree program over the new terms like this, so it can go down to 3.85 and 3.88, something around that one. So student experience, satisfaction with this approach as well. So contributions, implications, and next steps. So as you can see that this has shown that the pedagogy of care is enabled through role design, training structures, support mechanism, not solely value-based messaging. And it's offered a scalable approach that bridges relational theory to institutional practice. What's it imply for the institution is to audit on this online educator role for clarities, for workload, for support pathways, and professional learning opportunities. And indeed, the online educator are interested, to know what's next for them after the first 2 years with the university in this role, and we try to embed care enabling design into standard online teaching present for futures work, making pedagogy of care more explicit within the training curricula, and extending evaluation to long-term educator and the student outcome. Here are some of the reference for you. Thanks, everyone. We are open up for questions.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very nice presentation and interesting. I think it's very interesting. Your research is looking at the teacher educators themselves, rather than pre-service teachers, and supporting. There is a has the general assumption that we are able to teach, online, but having this kind of intervention is very interesting. Now, I open up the floor for any questions.
I have a question, Sarah.
Go ahead.
Hello, Chinh and Dawn. Can you just tell me were you gathering any sort of information on how the academics were conceptualizing care prior to your actual work here with this particular study, and if you actually looked at how that actually changed? Because an academic's consideration of care initially is sort of an emotive sort of line, a well-being kind of line, but the way you framed it in clarity, structural clarity, ongoing support and sustained professional learning, that sort of comes from the pedagogical angle rather than the student learning angle. So how did you create sort of or understand notions of care within this space for the academics? Like, what were they saying about care?
A lot of what they were saying about care was wrapped up in workload, in that they wouldn't have time to do it, and that we were asking too much of them to care about the students. And we were making it clear, class sizes were 1 to 25, and these were some of the tasks. And the response back was, I won't have workload to get to know the students. I won't have workload to, and it just kept stemming from workload. And when we would say, well, what does care currently look like in its current state? It was often about contact time and contact hours, never about it. Nobody was going into, I do this, I say this, I enable it by. So in the onboarding course, we have a module which gives some high-level frameworks. And we started there because we want to co-create it together over time, which is that next phase. So with what little information we had at the start was that academics didn't think care could be done online, and that there wasn't workload to do it. But what it actually meant, or what it like turned, how it was enacted, was never really contested or part of the big picture. I think we probably could go back and start doing the what does care mean before, and then what it might mean in 18 months. That would be an awesome research project. What would you add to that, Chinh?
Um, I think many of our online educator transitions from COVID time. And although they have some experiences teaching online, but again, it's more of a blended approach. So care for them is still very much of a face-to-face based approach, rather than supporting adult professional learners, who are having a job and who have families and care and other aspects of their lives. So care here for them, I think it has for the last year, we are about 1 year old, delivery coming up this August. I feel care has changed. It has changed from a very static face-to-face approach to a more nuanced day-to-day interaction with the students. And care here means, before I think it was more of a class-based approach, but now care means more individualized care for every single student that, that they have in their class, whether they have 2 students, 4 students, 10, or 65 students. So care here has a lot more nuance right now. So in many of our teaching models that we've been running so far with various degree programs, there was one with with around 60 students, but they are having 2 online educator co-teaching at the same time. And care load has been divided up into we're running the workshops together, for example, and marking division for and providing support for students. But care also means involving the subject coordinator into the delivery of the workshops, it involving other people delivering of the workshops as well. So care has a lot more nuanced approach, to that, and more individual aspect to the student. They also have drop-in sessions for the students. So in addition to the normal workshop that they run, they also have drop-in sessions to cater for a student who ask other questions. Care can be done online, can be done via email, can be done in drop-in session, can be done in workshops, care can be done on the discussion board, care can be done on the video, on the audio. We have heard online educator now talking about, I will be preparing an audio feedback or video feedback, 2-minute video feedback on every single assignment from this term onwards. So people are trying different way to care for the student and allowing that care to to support every single student, every learning
And there's
activities.
some mindset shifts from, like, I think extensions, Chin, would be a good example. Some teachers are beside themselves with how many extension requests we get in the adult learning environment. And when they come to us, they might be surprised or angry, and our response is always, "Oh, that's fantastic." And then we start to unpack, how approving extensions quite, in a straightforward and simple way. And what does it enable for students? Students that are juggling work, career, caring responsibilities, etc., sandwich generation. So giving that sort of lens to see things through, I think, has been really helpful as well. Chin also does a fair bit with data, and getting teachers to consider how you can be more proactive with students and engagement.
Yeah,
So,
I think, Chin, I really appreciated how you unpacked that because, in the higher education space, understanding that, support systems and clarity, clarity around structure is a representation of care. I think that's really interesting. But it would have been really interesting to see what academics, as I said before, considered care, because, they're sort of coming from what you've said pre-COVID, a relational classroom-based in-person notion of care to what they understand care at the end. I'd also be really interested to see what students understand as care as a response to having gone through, that actual a delivery of one of the units. And because often care is tied up in efficiency, or it was I could work my way through the course. So it'd be interesting to see both of those, but also the students' representation of care, which I don't know if we've got a lot of data on at the moment.
Yeah, and it would be also very interesting to see, is care only comes from the teacher educators, or as it also includes, creating an opportunity for students to care to each other. That may be another dimension that we could look at it. So is it only, teacher-student interaction is a care, or is it also creating the opportunity, for students themselves? So I don't know if you have that kind of data, but it will be interesting to see that dimension too.
We have data. We track students in terms of their presence and engagement with the subjects. from the pre-teaching weeks down to census date, which is week 2. And we're looking at students' access to the subject content, and whether they are accessing it or whether they are away, not accessing it for 48 hours, for example, to 72 hours, we will have student success team to be in touch with them. And we're also monitoring their level of access and engaging with the subject content and the discussion board, for example. We inform the online educator about that so that the online educator will reach out to them. Online educator also reach out to student who's starting fresh into a new course and send out a warm messages and welcome them to the program, and organizing a induction session with every single student who are brand new to the course. So online educator has been obviously you can see there's a lot of time spent on caring for every single student. Yeah, and I think I think online educator has been finding this work is very rewarding for them. For the first time, they enjoy online teaching. It fits with their life. It fits with the care that they're providing to their student. Yeah.
Yeah, I think thanks, Chen. I think sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Siam? Is that
That's correct.
Sorry,
Sorry.
said, I think is a really interesting point because, Chin, what you've kind of described as all the kind of learning analytics that sit behind and the outward sort of facing approach to care, how the academic reaches, how many times a student does this, and this. I mean, care is a very nuanced, emotive sort of kind of concept. So what Siam said about student-to-student care, evidence of those sort of type of how is care represented as part of the system of care within something like, asynchronous learning, which is, probably the most removed, isolated experience that students have, unless it's designed for, a lot of co-collaboration, which often asynchronous is because they've moved through at different times. So I think this space has so many options for research opportunity.
We have really interesting data on the student-to-student point as well. So we do a preferences survey when a student is on their way into the courses. And one of them is their expectation for teacher-to-student time and their expectation for classmate-to-classmate time. And teacher to student, very high, student to student through the floor. So we use that to unpack Chin uses that to unpack assumptions with the teachers. And we use it then also to look at expectation versus reality in the student data. So it's like we can see they're not logging in and that matches their preferences. So we keep asking, but is that how the student intended to engage? And we keep finding, yes, it is. And look, they're doing okay. But I also want to call out just how important it is to have a caring person modeling and looking after the cohort. We have Chin. Everyone needs someone like Chin because when I go to meetings, I go to committees, and I get emails all throughout the month about how they've never received such support like what Chin offers, how he's approachable. And that was really what we set out to do, was a bit of modeling all throughout, with having Chin be the key contact person with the course that was built. And then making sure that it was going from Melbourne online all the way down through the teacher to the student. And I think that sort of more system or holistic lens on it is also really important, because if we were saying go care without someone like Chin and without all the enablement, I don't think we'd be seeing the same outcomes.
Are you trying, oh, my last question, sorry, I'm dominating here. Are you trying to reconstruct students' conceptions of their roles as learners in these, as part of this? Because you've indicated that the student was low and the teacher to student was high, which is kind of what we represent in classrooms, and that's kind of the repositioning that online can do for especially in the asynchronous, because it's student led. So how is part of this about bringing the student to be a higher participant in the student to student opportunity? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And maybe this comes back to intentional design. We did a fair bit of workshop before building this approach and the system, and even in the precursor research that wasn't. I think when we looked at we did like a trade-off evaluation exercise, and classmate to classmate interaction did not rank. And I know there are all sorts of reasons why we should, pursue it anyway. And so where it is built into the learning outcome, where it is part of a program or course feature or a graduate outcome, we take that into consideration. But we haven't made it as like a key feature of the overall design.
Yeah.
Would you add to that,
Yeah.
Chin?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah,
that's good.
thank
Yeah.
you very much. We are bounded by time, unfortunately. I wish we had more discussion on this. It's very interesting. Sarah was presenting this morning, very interesting topic, and in the earlier presentation, they were talking about, making authentic online learning, how to make cultural practices authentic in online learning. They were talking about the challenges. And, all this comes, are we really looking online learning different from, face-to-face, or are we looking at mirroring, face-to-face to online? That's very interesting discussion, and there are a lot of research that can be done, in this area. It's unexplored area that we need to explore further. And I wish we had a lot of discussion on this area, but unfortunately we are bounded by time and we have to move to the closing remarks. Okay, so thank you very much, Chin and Nguyen, for your presentation. And I hope we keep discussing this one beyond this conference. And see you in the closing remark room.
Thank you, Sayum. Thank you,
Thank you.
Bye,
Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
John.
Great job, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.